Have you ever been frustrated in leadership, wherein you're doing everything that you know to do, but nothing seems to be working? You know you need to reset, but you don't even know how to begin again. Well, today we're going to cover 4 foundations of leadership. In today's fast-paced world, leadership is more critical than ever, but having a solid foundation is the key to you unlocking your true leadership potential. The first foundation of leadership is to lead with courage. One of the most important qualities of a leader is courage. Courage is defined as the ability to do what frightens others. Courage isn't the absence of fear, rather the determination that I'm going to push past my feelings into the unknown. Courage in leadership is important because the people that you have been entrusted to lead are waiting for you to lead with authority. Now, there are 4 types of courage that every leader needs. The very first one is moral courage. This is the courage to stand up for one's beliefs in the face of overwhelming opposition. One of the first things that happens to leaders, especially in situations of pressure or crisis, is they begin to lose their integrity and their values. Many allow the pressure of the moment to change what they stand for and ultimately how they conduct themselves in the environment. However, a conviction that is only a conviction when everything is going well was never a conviction in the first place. And in the leadership seat, there are times of extreme pressure. But the thing about pressure is that pressure always tells the story of who we are. Pressure always tells the story of what you truly believe. What happens when we squeeze a lemon? The easy answer is when you squeeze a lemon, the contents of the lemon, the seeds and the juice is what comes out. The very same thing happens when you are squeezed, when you receive that pressure. It's what's on the inside of you begins to come out. So the first type is moral courage. The second type is intellectual courage. This is the courage to challenge limiting beliefs. Intellectual courage is the courage to challenge those old assumptions and to decide to act on new understandings and new insights. Intellectual courage is the ability to adapt your understandings to the situation that has presented itself. Each day as a leader, you are presented with a very specific situation. And the last thing you want to do is be someone who is constantly acting on assumption. Another thing that intellectual courage does is intellectual courage always deals in reality. It looks at the facts as how they are, and it makes an intelligent decision. Next is disciplined courage. Disciplined courage is the courage to be reflective, strategic, and focused in the face of opposition. One of the things that we need to remember as leaders is the first thing a problem brings is never a solution. The first thing a problem brings is noise. Everyone starts freaking out because we've got a problem. But it's your challenge to focus on the job at hand. The way you display disciplined courage will ultimately model the behavior for everyone else to follow. Lastly, there's empathetic courage. Empathetic courage is the courage to open and feel deeply for others. Vulnerability in leadership isn't a weakness, but vulnerability in leadership is often a strength. We cannot be so task-oriented and so focused on the solution, that we forget that every situation that happens has some sort of impact on the others that are involved in the same situation. Leaders have to train themselves to do both. Leaders that are able to choose and display empathy, they position themselves to have their team willingly fight for them in the battle and ultimately respect you for years to come after. If your people know that you genuinely care about them, they will do their absolute best for you. And I have a video on the people first mentality that you want to check out. All right, so the first foundation of leadership is to lead with courage. Foundation number 2 is to lead with visibility. One of the things many leaders do is they put paperwork in front of the people. They hide behind the computer. As a leader, if you fail to be visible, someone else will rise up to fill that vacancy because someone's going to fill the leadership seat. And we want it to be you. But if you are not visible and authoritative, someone else will rise up to fill the leadership vacancy every single time. And when that happens, your people will unconsciously begin to follow them. Or even worse, multiple people try to rise up to take the leadership seat, and everyone is just doing whatever they want to do. Visibility is important every day. It's not just important when problems arise, but it's important every day. Now, as soon as pressure or crisis arises, your priority should be getting in front of your people. When crisis hits, things are unstable. Your people need to see you because as a leader, your presence in itself can give the perception of stability, especially if you're a good leader. Being visible says, I'm here, I've got your back, I'm in it with you, follow me. Great leaders provide visibility. Great leaders provide insights and rationale into decisions. And great leaders ultimately work with the team to assure the delivery of desired outcomes. There is not a system you create. There is not a manual you put together that will have a more positive impact on your team than you being present. Now, there are 3 keys to visibility. The very first one is calm under pressure. When crisis hits, how do you react? Do you freak out with them or are you cool, calm, and collected? It is ultimately your goal as a leader to be the voice that responds and not reacts. And the reason for this is because you have responsibility of your team. So you need to be able to respond with ability instead of just reacting to whatever's going on. The next key to visibility is to galvanize. Always focus on bringing people together and creating that community. Leadership is the ability to bring several opinions, several skill sets all together to accomplish a common goal. And the third and final key of visibility is to take accountability for missteps. As a leader, take the heat. Whenever things don't go as planned, take ownership of it because every single thing that's going on is a leadership problem. So with that, take ownership of the situation, extract the lessons, and move forward. All right, foundation number 3 is decisiveness. One of the most important qualities of a leader is the ability to make decisions. The decisions we make as leaders can decrease or increase both the morale and the issue at hand. A lot of leaders become so focused on not making a mistake that they paralyze themselves from forward movement. In the event that you make a mistake as a leader, you're granted a lesson. Take the lesson and move on. The most important thing when it comes to decisions is being proactive about the conversation with your team. Focus on being the leader that explains clearly what, how, and why, and follows with, do you have any questions for me? Tips to being a more decisive leader. The very first one is to leverage your voice. Your team not only requires, but I believe your team is looking to hear your voice. They're searching for the voice of a leader. And whenever you speak, your voice should be one of urgency, yet reassurance. This allows people to be comfortable and trust you. The way you leverage your voice, it can motivate or it can discourage. So we have to be super careful here. Ultimately, your voice is used to articulate plans and expectations. Now, whenever we talk about leveraging our voice, we have to talk about delegation. The key to being able to delegate properly is being both clear and precise. Whenever we aren't clear as leaders, we make a runway for confusion, and it's no one's fault but our own. There are 3 keys to a successful delegation. The very first one is an alignment conversation. Never delegate without first starting with an alignment conversation. An alignment conversation is making sure that every single person involved is clear on what is supposed to be done, when it's supposed to be done, and what the next step will be after it's completed. Next, distribute resources. You can't increase the expectations of someone without giving them the resources they need and time to get it done. As expectations increase on your end, All resources that are required to get it done must be shared. It is quite often that leaders expect their team to do more with less. And whenever that is the mindset, you sabotage enthusiasm. Whenever more with less is the mindset, you kill confidence. The last key of delegating revolves around accountability and consequences. This is saying that you must clarify how the performance is going to be measured. If you are not doing all three of these when it comes to delegating tasks, you're not properly delegating and you're setting your team up for failure, and you will always be disappointed with the result. The last thing I want to cover regarding decisiveness is that as leaders, we must train ourselves to think beyond the moment. Several things to consider here. First of all, be a hope builder. In order to properly lead from the front, you have to be someone who instills hope in your team. Train your team not just to think of this current moment. Train your team not to just think of this month, but train your team to think about the future. The reason this is so important is because training your team to think about the future trains them to think creatively. It also trains them to be hopeful for what is to come as they consider what their current impact is having on said future. Another thing is always use crisis as an opportunity to make something better than it was. In every situation where a problem exists, a solution must too exist. And crisis is simply danger plus opportunities. So with that, never let a good crisis go to waste. Another thing to consider is the concept of consistency. It is important that you not only train the task, but train the discipline behind your decisions to your team. The best way to teach your team discipline is to model discipline. Don't allow them to slip on the little things. Don't allow yourself to slip on the little things. There's a saying that says it is raindrops that make oceans, which is simply saying that all the little things is what's leading up to the vast things. The fourth foundation is empowerment. Are you the leader that allows his or her insecurities to take power away from the team? Or are you the leader that knows that you don't know it all and knows that you hire talented people and allows your security to give power to the team? Most teams are disempowered. How about yours? Your team needs authority to make decisions within your strategic boundaries and guidelines. Because as a leader, you can't be everywhere. You don't want to be everywhere. You can't make all of the decisions, and you shouldn't want to make all of the decisions. The thing that we have to remember is that if we delegate direction, we give resources and time, but we do not empower them to make their own decisions and to take ownership of the task, we give away our leverage. Empowerment is not blanket authority. In fact, it is never blanket authority. Empowerment is clearly articulated authority to make decisions within the bounds of your strategic choices. So the leader sets the boundaries and allows their team to make some decisions within the boundaries. I love Kim Blanchard's example of the coach is not on the field during the game. The coach is on the sideline, but allows his or her team to actually move the ball and then coaches them during timeouts and says, hey, let's make this adjustment. All right, go back out. But the coach isn't controlling every single move that these players are doing. You got to give them freedom to move the ball. And it's the same thing with leadership. The problem with teams that aren't empowered is they can't advance. Your team will never rise above the level of empowerment that you've allowed them to have. To advance is the goal of leadership. And herein lies the overarching secret to every leadership problem, is can we challenge ourselves to attack the issue with a mindset of solving the problem and a target to advance? Leaders should always be in the mindset of what can I do to keep advancing? In terms of empowerment, only take on the task that has to be done by you. Everything else should be given to someone else, which would allow them to develop a new skill set, which would allow someone to learn something new and to take on ownership of something. And when you present somebody with the opportunity to take ownership, you are also presenting them with the opportunity to grow. One of my mentors taught me that for every job I hated doing, every task I hated doing, there was a junior member that was chopping at the bit to learn a new skill. And when it comes to empowerment, we as leaders need to learn, like Carla Harris says, that we gain power by giving it away. Every day in the leadership seat teaches us something. If you play it correctly, you will instill things in your team that they will pass down to their team when the time comes for them to lead one. And if you don't do anything else in your leadership journey, always be focused on the 4 foundations that I just covered. Because if you focus on those 4 foundations, you can figure everything else out. But above all, as a leader, you must have courage, you must be visible, you must have decisiveness, and you must empower your people. Always remember that growth is a journey, it's not a destination. I'm in it with you, and I'll catch you on the next one.